Let's begin at the beginning of change. We will explore the first stage of change in this video and what strategies help us to move through it. We often describe the first stage of change with these words: everything was going along just fine until. To describe that disruption to our lives or to our teams. We may finish the sentence with when COVID-19 occurred, or we may not. In this first stage of change, things begin to fall apart. And I find it interesting that in English, we always use the word fall to describe the season of autumn, or that time in many parts of the world where leaves fall from the trees. What we've been growing begins to end or die. Around the world, the first stage of change is often associated with fall or autumn. You will notice that when someone is in the first stage of change, their emotional reactions may be that they're in shock or denial, or they're pretending that the change isn't happening. They may be angry and push back against the change, or they might be excited about the possibilities that are hidden inside this shift that is coming. In the beginning, we don't have a sense of what the change will mean to us, so we often will react with fear or even wishful thinking. Humans have been dealing with change for thousands of years, so we've gathered approaches and saved them in the world's lasting cultural traditions. For example, we can draw from the 3,000-year-old text, The Art of War, which comes out of the Taoist tradition, when we hit this first stage of change. This text shares that we should act as a sage commander and follow this adage. And so it is said, know the others and know oneself, then victory is not in danger. Know earth and know heaven, then victory can be complete. When change comes, around the world, we are advised to get curious. In this instance, we are going to use military language when it comes to confronting the conflict that comes with change. I'm comfortable with using this language here since The Art of War describes the most sage commanders as those who, before they begin fighting, are so good at assessing and knowing their troops, the opponent, and the battlefield that they can declare a winner without going to war. Our job at the beginning of change is to learn as much as we can about what is bringing about the change. What or who is our opponent? What are their characteristics? You might have seen this assessment by the scientists and public health professionals as we've been trying to understand the characteristics of COVID-19. How does it mutate or spread, for example? We want to also assess our own troops. What are our strengths? Where are we vulnerable? What might be some possible opportunities, and where are we threatened? In the first stage of rapid change, we want to consider the battlefield that we are on and the rules of engagement, or the earth and the heaven of our situation. Where are we going to fight? How does it work? The sage commander, the leader in this case, is curious and recognizes that all of this information is constantly changing. So we want to keep asking and expecting shifts to occur. In this first stage or phase of change, we want to also remember that the change process may take a very long time. So sage commanders or warriors, we approach change, the whole process, as though we are going to do it as long as we need to. This demands that we keep ourselves in good health, and we practice self-care, and we pace ourselves. You notice that in warrior traditions, like in the martial arts, there's a great focus on training so that you have endurance. When team members or you get stuck and you don't want to engage in the change and you want to deny it or ignore it, or you get defensive and angry, There are 4 tips that can help to bring us along. 1 is to focus on what is working. We know that gratitude moves us into a learning mode, as we've discussed earlier, so returning to that. 2, ask open-ended questions, broad questions like, what are you noticing? What might I be missing? And this also shifts us into our neocortex. Number 3, consider that rapid change can also create shock and trauma. How can we support others as they recover, as if it were a traumatic event? This is a big topic, but I bring it up as one of your considerations. For example, when I have worked with teachers from the West Bank of Palestine, I've learned that before they can expect their students to learn again, after a crisis or an attack, they use crisis recovery, trauma and crisis recovery strategies to help the children to feel more centered and relatively safe again. Number 4, in general, your attitude or comfort with change can be contagious. Humans have mirror neurons. They're components in your brain that watch other people's emotions, and then you want to mirror those emotions. We're wired to watch those who are taking a lead, and if they're scared, we're more apt to mirror that emotion of fear. So if in the first stage of change you lean into being curious about what we're facing and you hold a realistic and active hope that we can navigate this challenge, that we can turn it into an opportunity, your attitude can be contagious. We'll close this video with a quote from Kathleen MacDonald that models this contagious active hope when change occurs. When we fall on the ground, it hurts us, but we must rely on the ground to get back up. Let's all be curious about the earth on which we have fallen and get back up stronger and better than before.